Let's do it, my man.
All right, guys. Welcome back to Muscle Minds with Dr. Scott Stevenson. I'm Scott McNally. This program, as well as all of Advices Radio, is brought to you by True Nutrition. You can use our code ADVICES at checkout. That'll get you some additional savings. Plus, it will let True Nutrition know that you support what we are doing here, and in turn, they will continue supporting us. Dr. Scott, we are catching you just a few days before you leave to meet up with Lainey because she's competing this weekend, correct?
Yes, I guess we can let the world know that now. I don't know that she wants everyone to know about it, but yeah, she is.
You mentioned that last episode. You're like, she didn't want to put it out there yet.
Okay, she did. I couldn't remember. I just, you want to, it's not my call, but yeah, she's looking just off the chain.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I'm so happy for her.
She really gets so conditioned. You what?
Yeah, she does, but this time she's had, like, she could literally just walk on stage right now and she'd blow out of the water anything that she's had before.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, her posing's better. She's got more muscular. She's filled out. Her waist is dramatically improved.
Yeah.
And she's got better waist control too. Everything, like, she's put it all together in a way that just it's like she's almost a different competitor.
That's
pretty cool. Yeah. That's cool. And her Nelson Jones, he actually thanked me. He heard the last podcast we did.
Nice.
He's responsible for that. So we talked yesterday. She's doing the peak week the way I do it. So no diuretics. She just wanted to try that. Worked great last time.
Okay.
Phenomenal. Yeah, it's a bitch because you have to go for a few days without any carbs and train without carbs, and then you eat, fill up like a mofo, and then dry out.
I bet.
Work beautifully.
Let me ask you this. I've had situations where I haven't pulled water out of somebody's diet because they're so dry and hard they don't need it. Do you ever do that? Do you ever make the call like, hey, let's just not change anything. Let's just leave it as it is. Something like that?
Yeah, what I typically do is look at how they look, take pictures every day.
Okay.
See how they look before they start the protocol.
Yeah.
And then see how they change. So the first 3 days, you're doing regular training, you're not eating carbs, you're insulin sensitized, not trying to deplete per se, but you will, and you're already depleted.
Yeah.
Some people look ridiculous that day before they start the carb up.
Okay.
Because they've dropped water just from the low carbs, and that can be their best look.
Yeah.
So that could be it. Their best look could be at the beginning of the week. It could be like after a couple of days of no carbs. It could be after all those days of no carbs. It could be after one day of carbing up, and the next morning they look ridiculous. It could be after second, anywhere along that series. So you've got basically like 4 or 5 different situations, plus the one where you've ideally optimized everything.
Yeah.
On show morning.
That's cool.
And then what you have during that day too, when you play with the morning meals, because then you're in this very highly crafted physiological state where you're dry and you filled up because you haven't been posing using up the carbs that you filled up on earlier in the week.
Yeah.
And now you're sensitive to all sorts of shit. So you can, like, this is when Ken would do a shitload with people.
Okay.
Or a skip load. Skip load. And if you're dry, and I always use a scale, I've talked about this before, I always use a scale to indicate if you're dry or not. If you can't quite tell, because sometimes the mind games will get people. But if your weight has come down to where it was at the beginning of the week, or even lower than where it was at the end of those days with no carbs, then you're dry.
Yeah.
And then you can see what happens when you add different meals, and you have that whole day to experiment. So sometimes people will go conservative, and they're like, okay, I'm going to just try it all out. And they'll go to IHOP. Yeah. And they'll just go bonkers with the skip load, shitload, and they look ridiculous. So then you just put that in earlier in the day.
Okay.
So, but yes, to answer your question, absolutely. You want to find the best look throughout that week, and sometimes you don't got to do shit.
And when you were saying, like, you were saying they cut carbs earlier in the week, and then you might find somebody looks, their best just a few days into that because they're dropping water. You don't mean that they're dropping water as in they're pulling water out. You mean that their body is dropping water, just to be clear, right?
Yeah, the water content of their body is being reduced by the fact that they're not eating any carbs.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they drink plenty of water, and they're just when you're that lean, you know this. You can. I have a picture that I was like clearing out my phone a couple months ago, and I found this picture I'd taken years ago of me in my garage back in Arizona.
Yeah.
This was like before one of the Masters Nationals, and It looks kind of like, remember that picture that Shelby posted a long time ago where his glutes were they look like Photoshop, like just total clamshell.
Oh yeah,
My glutes look like that. And that was just the day I got up, and I drank like a half a gallon of water overnight. Like I was drinking water all the time. Yeah, I just was always thirsty.
Yeah.
But I was always, my water balance was so low because I was so lean, and I got up, and it's like, you would think, oh God, you didn't drink water for like 4 days to make that happen. Like, no, I drank like a liter of water like an hour before that or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you can be drinking a ton of water, but if you're really, really lean, you won't hold the water. And if you've been lean long enough, you won't hold the water either.
That's got to be a big key too in your protocol, because you've mentioned it multiple times. You don't use diuretics. That's got to be a big factor too. Is that the key is get somebody in shape, right? And the more they're in shape, the less you would even need to use a diuretic to begin with, right?
That's true. I mean, that's true. You need less diuretics the leaner you are in general, or less need to drop water because you're not holding it when you're leaner.
Yeah.
So, but the protocol still, assuming there's only like 2 exceptions when it doesn't really work very well. That's if someone's been drinking taking a lot of caffeine already. Because I do use caffeine, I just don't use diazide or dactone or that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I funny diuretics in the form of uva-ursi and dandelion and caffeine.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it is funny because Lainey was because she was a little concerned when we did the practice run, and she woke up we did it for Sunday, and she woke up Monday and then even Tuesday, and she was even lighter on both of those days.
Okay. After the practice run, and how far out was this?
Yeah. This was a week and a half, like 8-9 days ago.
Okay.
This was, that's literally the Sunday before last. And she's like, is that normal? And I'm like, yeah, you don't have any rebound. There's no rebound with this at all. Because basically if you had someone and you just said, they had 3 cups of coffee versus 2, you wouldn't expect them all of a sudden to be a waterlogged sow the next day. Right. It's not that powerful. It doesn't have that effect and that strong of a way. I really think when people load up on aldactone and the diazide, it just perturbs their electrolyte and fluid homeostasis so much, and maybe even kind of throws their kidneys off. Like there's a little bit of acute damage to the kidneys in a way. That's why you have the rebound. That's just so terrible for so many people.
Oh yeah, and there's no way you could have practiced that at 9 days out from the show. You know what I mean? Using diazide, that'd be a mistake.
Yeah, you can do. I've had people do this peak week protocol because you move forward, take a quantum leap in terms of leanness every time. It freaks people out because you only train the first 3 days of the week, and then you don't train until you do some light posing, but you don't do any training until maybe that day of the practice show, if you feel like you can, or the next day. You take several days off training. You still leap forward almost every single time. I can't think of a time when someone didn't get leaner. And you take on those days that you carb up, you really fill up big time. Everyone gets leaner every single time. And so I've had people do this. I think 5 or 6. I have to ask the guy that did this. He did it 5 or 6 in a row.
I get you. 5 or 6 weeks. Did you say
8 weeks after you're ready?
You're kind of. We have a really poor connection right now.
Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah. So it's been cutting for about the last 4 or 5 minutes. But did you say 5 weeks in a row he was doing it?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay now?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just been cutting in and out a little bit.
All right. That's funny because normally that happens to me when I'm hearing you, but you've been perfect.
Yeah, that's what we noticed that on when Swoley Trinity. Every few minutes you would cut out a little bit. By the way, speaking of which, the second episode, man, that was a heavy episode you guys did as far as content goes.
Yeah, let me finish that thought before we jump to the other podcast.
Yeah, no, I wanted to throw that in because I'm ADD. I went to that, my brain jumped. I had been wanting to mention that to you. I haven't talked to you since then.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
but yeah, please do.
You can practice it every week because there's no rebound, and you'll get leaner as well.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had that. And so the 2 times it doesn't work for people is when they've been taking a lot of caffeine already. Like we're talking like people are using like 2 grams a day, like 2,000 milligrams.
You're kidding me. I could never imagine letting myself get that high. I could see like it happening, but I could never I wouldn't let myself do it. You know what I mean?
It's been the situations that both of them have been with people who are personal trainers who wake up at like 4 in the morning and they have their first client at 4:30 and then they train until like 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
And they're trying to prep and keep going at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're just like, they just get into this, it's a slippery slope, and they end up, next thing they know, they're like one guy was drinking like, I want to say he was drinking like 6 liters of Diet Mountain Dew a day or something like that, 2 liters.
Oh, geez.
Plus 4 or 5 no-dos, whatever that adds up to, you can do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if people trip out, sorry. Hey, Blitzy, don't do that.
It's always Blitzy that's doing something.
She's about to bust through one of the screens here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she'll go right through them. She doesn't care. She's like, she moves logs and shit with her nose. Yeah, she logs, bricks. Her nose is like a giant shovel. And then people, when they trip out, if people get overly stressed and they kind of lose it, that can throw people off. And I've seen that happen just a couple times.
Okay.
That's why we do the practice run, because it's not like, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to work. This is just weird. If you practice it once, you saw it work. It's like, okay, yeah, this is cool. I just got to do what I just did, and it's going to work the way it did before.
Yeah.
So you're not worried about it. Yeah. And I employ various strategies with people too. It's like watching funny movies.
No kidding. Like you actually put that into the plan.
Yes.
You're like, watch an Adam Sandler movie tonight.
Yeah, or whatever you like. You know, if you have a movie that's your favorite movie or something that, is kind of a comfort place to be.
I love that.
Yeah. Comfort spot. Yeah, absolutely. It's huge.
That's cool.
And they practically do that. Yeah. So it's a total, absolutely, you have to do it, because otherwise, like, you're in a new hotel and you got people walking around and you're seeing the other if you're at the host hotel, of course, you got competitors walking around. Everyone's got, Skeletor face and like they're all going to beat me and blah, blah, blah. And like, you need to find you create your own little energetic bubble.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super important.
I've seen it in my own life where the stress could really change the way my physique looks. I've definitely seen it in clients too. And sometimes I get to a point, I've known people where they just have a harder time handling stress, and that they have historically always kind of screwed up at the last minute because they would let it get to them every time, which I get it. I get that it's a stressful thing, but I think part of being your best really is kind of doing what you're talking about, like knowing how to control that, being almost like Zen, like to take it to the extreme. And I think he said afterward that he was joking, but what did Arnold say in Pumping Iron? He was like, my mother called and said, like, why aren't you coming to see your father's funeral?
Oh,
and she was like, it's too late. He's dead. There's nothing I can do there.
Right, right.
I heard
if that's not your personality, then I don't try to impose that upon people.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, but you do want them to be chill, right? You do want them to find their own, like you said, find their happy place.
Yeah, it's funny because this came up in conversation. Chris Cormier is renowned for having in Vegas, he'd go out and party his ass off the night before
right
Olympia, right? But that was what he'd like to do.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you took Chris Cormier and said, okay, sit in this hotel room and play Scrabble.
Yeah.
He'd be tripping out. He'd go bonkers. He probably would have looked worse.
Yeah.
If he went out and, I don't know if I'm not saying he did this, but I don't think he probably, if he's out doing hookers and blow and he has a good time doing hookers and blow.
Yeah.
That's fucking good. That's great for him. That was his happy place.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't want to tell someone, okay, now I want you to go sit in your room, and get in the lotus position, and close your eyes, and focus on on breathing through your nose. That's not going to fucking work for someone.
For someone, who's not already doing that and plugged into it, and
it has to be whatever you like. I mean, if it's a funny, you're laughing your ass off movie or something good, but just something that is normal and relaxing and comfortable and recreational for you. That's not obviously jumping out of, probably not jumping out of an airplane without a parachute.
Right.
That kind of shit.
Right. Or
Yeah. So,
and hopefully not hookers and blow. You know.
I mean, I'm not gonna say like, I guess blow's not legal, but hookers are legal in Vegas, so you're only
There you
breaking
go.
one law.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if that's what if someone said, you know, I'm going to have sex all night long and I'll feel great and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll look awesome.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Be like, do
Just
it.
make sure you're doing the practice run.
High five.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to help you with that. You find your own partner for that one. But
right.
seriously, but whatever it is, the main thing too is that, I like to have people like hunker down and do the practice run as meticulously as they put all the pressure they possibly can on themselves.
Okay.
Like, don't think, oh, it's just practice, it doesn't matter. It's like, no, this is the more important than the real one in a certain way. I want all the pressure, like the timing has to be right. Do all the same shit. Like, don't do anything different. Nail it, the practice run, and then you can cruise through because you've already done all that. It's all easy during the peak week, the actual peak week of the show.
Yeah.
Because you've already worked through, like, oh, am I supposed to take this now? I can't remember if I take that. They'll just blow it off. I had someone not a terribly long time ago do a consult on a peak week, and they got back to me, and they didn't do the second half. They just did the carb up, and then they didn't do the water drop at the end.
What? Okay.
And then it was I really didn't understand because I gave them the same spiel I was just giving you. And they didn't do that, and they said, "What do you think I should eat the morning of the show with that remedy?" Things. I'm like, "Well, you did the first step and the second step, but you skipped the third, so the fourth one really doesn't. They can't answer the question about the fourth one because you skipped the third one."
Yeah.
So they spent like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that week setting up for what would have happened Friday and then Saturday, and then they just didn't do Friday. So they kind of like they have some partial answers, but they don't have any idea whether the whole protocol would work for them.
Yeah,
and that's really super important. Like for it to be work the way it needs to work, it has to really be a trial run. It's like in the military when they they want to make the shit. That's what basic training's about. It's like this is like they want to weed you out. Certainly I don't want to weed people out, but they want to make it as real, as hardcore, as intensive, as realistic as possible. So do a peak week as realistically as possible in every way, shape, or form. You don't have to go like rent a hotel in your hometown, thing like that, but do everything you possibly can. And then it's like, I've already done this. It's a walk in the park.
Yeah.
It's not new. It's novelty that freaks us out.
Yeah.
I
can see that.
Try to eliminate the novelty of it. So
I can see that. That makes sense. Now, I've read your article, How to Skin a Bodybuilder, part 1 and 2, over at John Meadows' site. You can get the same information in the book. Am I right?
Yeah, I have one other thing in the book. I guess it's in the book. People can read about it. It's one of the coolest things. I hadn't put that in there in that article, but the book is about using gravity. I'll just say it this way. I'm going to tease people, see if they want to buy the book, because people are doing this all over the place.
Okay.
I've actually heard about it. There is a hormone of natriuresis, sodium loss. When you lose sodium, you lose water because water follows salt.
Right.
That can be triggered to be released naturally if you change the line of gravity on your body.
No kidding.
Yes, indeed. It's in the book. You have the book. Read the book.
I'll have to go to that section. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's like people are like, holy shit. And you can just use that and it'll drop water.
I like that idea.
Works really well.
I'm intrigued now.
Cool.
I'm trying to like mentally guess, put it together. I'm not even going to say anything out loud though.
We might have talked about it before, to be honest, but anyway.
I'll have to look. I'll have to look. I'll have to read the book then.
We'll see if we hear back from people and they make it known, and then I'll explain the underpinnings of that and how I came to know about that.
All right.
Phenomenon. It's kind of a cool story.
That sounds good.
So you wanted to talk about the Swelly Trinity?
Yeah. We've got to get to break here shortly, but before that, tell me about it. We've got, by the way, guys, we've got some good questions that Scott and I are going to cover today. We're over at the forum, so we're going to get to those after our break. But yeah, Scott, tell me a little bit about it, because you guys dove intensively into, well, really, it could have been a podcast on its own, keto diet, and you broke it all down, everything from what a keto diet is, variations on a keto diet, how it works. Like, this was a pretty in-depth podcast you guys did.
Well, you were there, silly. Like,
but I was just witnessing it, though.
Right.
And we are now telling the other people,
right.
that everybody listening, who.
So tell me about already seen, like, what happened. Hold on, we got a plane. Yeah, what do? We did keto diets for the longest while, and then the little clip is Paul wanted to know in particular how to make sure he doesn't lose any penile size and mass. So we figured that out. So that information's in there in case anyone's worried about penile shrinkage when you're dieting. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
we have the solution, but you have to listen to the podcast to get that. And then what was the other topic we went into?
It was EMG and why to not necessarily base your training protocols off of EMG results, right?
Yeah. So that was an interesting one because people will use EMG, and it's funny. Where did I see this recently? I'm trying to think. Oh, I don't even want to go into that.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I was watching part of a podcast and someone was talking about fasting. I'll just say kind of what I heard. I won't say where I heard it, but
okay.
Fasting. Some people are going to have heard this, I'm sure, because they probably get fed the same podcast as I do on YouTube. And that someone fasted for like 77 hours and they saw not a single ounce of muscle loss.
Come on.
Based on anthropomorphic measurements.
Okay.
So that's fancy, right? We have anthropometry, anthropomorphic measurements. Those are skin folds or circumferences. It's like just measuring body size. So skin folds, and apparently to the resolution of 1 ounce of muscle mass, not fat-free mass, not lean body mass, but muscle mass. So skin folds don't measure muscle mass. Skin folds estimate fat-free mass as based upon an estimation done with hydrostatic weighing, which makes assumptions about the densities of the fat and the fat-free mass, which do not hold true with 100% validity because there's variations there. So the fact that you could make a skin fold measurement on someone, anthropometric measurement, and somehow think that you can determine whether there's 1 ounce or a half an ounce or 2 ounces, 3 ounces of change in muscle mass is absolutely ludicrous. That shows that you're with me.
I'm with you. I'm following you. I got something stuck in my eye.
It's like that doesn't fit at all with an understanding of estimation of body composition.
Right.
So someone has taken the idea that there's like the scientific notion, and thrown out some fancy words like anthropometry or anthropometric, and the idea that it can measure with the resolution of 1 ounce. And that's just scientific hogwash. So that's the reason I thought of that, was that people have used EMG, and overextended the notion of EMG telling you what muscle is without understanding what the limitations are of EMG. Shitload of them. Okay. It's a whole bunch of, we showed in the podcast a table from a review article that Roger Noka did. And there's so many limitations, underlying assumptions with EMG. It's not like you're getting like the muscle is, giving you like a direct feedback. Like, this is what I'm doing. I'm on, I'm off. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on there that people are trying to refine with mathematical techniques and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it's highly complicated and highly subject to misinterpretation.
I see.
Method. And you could do entire classes at the graduate level on EMG to try to dig in what's going on there. And I could spend an hour boring the fuck out of everyone talking about what's going on in terms of the electromagnetic fields that are brought on by the flow of electrons in neurons and skeletal muscle, which all are being picked up on. It's kind of like you're trying to you're looking at a sandstorm and you're trying to figure out the people in the sandstorm, what their chess moves are going to be. I see some people sitting at a table and they look like they're playing chess, but I don't know who's going to win. I have no idea. But I know they're playing chess. I can tell that much.
Yeah.
It's like literally that much. Are the people there now? Oh no, they're not there. Okay, they're not playing chess.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of it's that nebulous. I'm using the word nebulous. It's that fucking cloudy, in my opinion, at least. So anyway, that's what's going on when you see people using EMG like on, and they're just overextending the findings of the EMG in a way that doesn't even make common sense. Anyway, so I'm getting back on the soapbox that I got on the podcast, but that's a cool topic. So we covered that one too.
Do you guys have a plan on do you know what the plan is that you're going to cover this week? Have you guys talked about that yet?
Mm-hmm. We talked last week. I can't even remember because we talked about so much other shit.
All right.
But we have a plan. I can't remember what the topics
we have a plan. I don't know what it is, but
it doesn't matter. Paul keeps track of that shit.
All right, cool. Well, guys, you can all check that out. We'll be recording that live through the Advices Radio Facebook page. You can check that out live on Wednesday at about 12:20 is when we're going to start Eastern Standard Time, and then it'll be out. Recorded version will be out on Monday, along with the YouTube video and of course on the Advices Radio. Of course, we have everything still. All of this, like our show here, the video version, guys, you could still download this as the audio version, just like we've always done. Scott, what do you say we get to a quick break and come back and knock out our questions?
Yeah, was there an iTunes issue? Someone asked about iTunes. Is something going on with iTunes that I don't know about?
No, iTunes is running smooth. iTunes is running great.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
I thought so too.
Might have been Bodybuilding Nerds that they were talking about.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because Bodybuilding Nerds is currently not on iTunes anymore. It's just on SoundCloud. But everything on Advices Radio is smooth.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, shows are all coming out as normal. Everything we do on video is both released on YouTube as well as a video version, as well as an audio version through iTunes and through advicesradio.com, as well as any other podcast app and Stitcher. You could all get the audio versions there. So, yep, no issues whatsoever. Things are chugging along.
What happened with Bodybuilding Nerds? Why is that not on iTunes?
The website crashed. VJ had built it, and he's not like a web designer, okay? So, but I'll tell you what, had VJ not built that site, Bodybuilding Nerds might have never happened, because I know, Scott, that you like to make sure everything's planned when you're going into something and you want it to be 100%. I recognize that in myself, and I could get bad with it to the point where, like, that show might have never happened. But VJ was like, well, I can kind of build a website. We'll just do it, and we'll go. And boom, 210 episodes later, we've got a podcast. And then this evolved from that. So I'm grateful that he did that. But nonetheless, the site hadn't been updated when it needed to be. And whatever happened, the RSS feed stopped communicating with the website, and so it stopped. I've talked to a couple people. There's a guy who's built some fitness related podcast websites in the sport. I asked him to take a look, and he hasn't gotten back to me. I've had you get random people like on Instagram that are like, "Hey, I'm a graphic designer. If you need me, let me know." And usually you're like, whatever.
I don't respond to those,
Yeah, I don't either. But then I looked at the guy's page, and I got back to him, and I was like, hey, check out this website. See if you can fix it for us. Never heard back. So, F yourself, buddy.
That's got to be easy to fix, though. There's probably just something that went out of date, and you just have to update the RSS feed.
Yeah, either that or, realistically, we could just start fresh. I'd be fine with that. If somebody could build a new site for us, that would be fine too. But apparently, though, nobody wants to do it. So until then, it is only on SoundCloud. That's where people can download it.
Who hosts that site? Is it GoDaddy?
Yep, it's a GoDaddy site.
GoDaddy?
Yeah.
Huh. I'll figure it out.
All right.
Seriously, I'd like to.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll be back in just a minute. All right, guys, welcome back to Muscle Minds with Dr. Scott Stevenson. I'm Scott McNally, and I was just getting ready to tell Scott my training. It's been good, although I'll tell you what, I kind of jacked up my elbow a little bit. I've gotten tennis elbow before on the top, but now I'm starting to get like a little golf elbow, and I know what it is because my arms are always a weaker area for me, biceps especially. If I really crank on them, I can get them to kind of, I don't know if it's more inflammation or what, but they swell up more and then they hold that look better. And I hadn't been doing that as much, especially with the push-pull legs split. I put a lot more into back, and then if I have energy, I put more into traps, and then I go to arms. So biceps might only get like a couple, maybe 6 sets, 8 sets a week, somewhere in there, tops. That's tops, maybe 4. And I think I need a little bit more volume than that, just for me personally. But then I started doing more volume, and I started really pushing and really going, like really pushing the failure, even with moderate weights, and doing like different like drop sets, supersets, or giant sets. A lot of giant set stuff, and then and it felt really good. And I was pushing to the point where like the muscles like really failing all the way up, and I get it, and I squeeze that last one, and then I still go to that really hard negative. And it feels so good, and then now, of course, my elbow's hurting, so I know why.
Just the one, though?
Yeah, just the one.
One side?
Yeah, just the left one. So.
Does it hurt while you train?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, there you go. See? Don't do that. Stop that exercise.
Yeah. It's
Just
really
another exercise.
It's really everything. Everything bicep-related is what's doing it. And now everything back-related seems to be doing it, so... So I'm going to go in for some...
Quan Luang oil.
For what?
Quan Luang oil.
I've never heard of that.
Oh my gosh. People are going to chastise the hell out of you.
Really?
Because that's like, people are known for me, like people love that. The Quan Luang oil, yeah. It's in the book too.
Yeah?
It's in one of the Q&As. Actually, there's a whole Q&A on Quan Luang oil.
Yeah?
Like, what's that? It's like the third one in the frequently asked questions at the back of the book.
Okay.
Something like, what's that stuff that you were putting on your knees in Dave Henry's video or something like that? Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a topical liniment. I go into all the science and the rationale and the reasoning and how to use it in the book. I've got that's something. It's in what's in your gym bag. It's covered in there. It's in that whole question, and then I have a link to where you can get it on Amazon. And people probably every month or so, someone says, "Hey, I've been using that stuff. It works great."
No kidding. Okay.
Find it?
Nope, not yet. But I'll look it up though. I'm looking at.
If you look at the table of contents and the frequently asked questions.
I see about where it's at, but I'll find it later on my own time though.
Yeah, it's all in the book on how to go about using. That's a whole other 45-minute answer.
James Brown asked, how do you spell that?
KWANLOONG. 2 words. Third word is oil.
And Kelly Valdez says, wash your hands after using that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, Kelly knows about it. Yeah, because like people put it on and they go to the bathroom because they're in the bathroom. Sometimes
ooh, yeah.
Not good. That is not good to have on your scrotum or anywhere down under if you're a guy. Like it's bad. So yes.
That reminds me.
You're able to get on a machine or something like that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Skip said something about using like I don't think he used Vasoburn, but I think it was like a Yohim burn or something. And he was talking about getting it on his wife's butt, basically. He's like, you gotta watch. Don't have sex until you wash your hands.
Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be no good.
No.
Your eyes, that's another bad one. I've done that with Vasoburn before, where you think it's off your hands, and then I touch my face a little later. Boom.
Yeah, that stuff hangs around. It works, though.
Yeah.
So, this is for a different purpose, but that would help you. But my rule of thumb on that is, like, you got to stop doing the shit that hurts. Like, you have to, like everything, if everything hurts, then you're going to have to, like, stop doing the stuff that hurts. Otherwise, you just perpetuate it. Like, it's so rare that you can, like, keep training, and when you know the training is hurting, tendon or whatever, and that it won't go away. I mean, it's just going to keep, and I've just known this because I've done it, like, I spent years of my life learning this lesson.
I follow you, man. I've done the same thing. So
I know you have.
That's why it's irritating to me because I know what the answer is. There's no real answer other than resting it. So, which I have been doing. That means, so I was pushing biceps harder. That means now I can't push biceps anymore. And so whatever. I'll move on to the questions here, though. We had some good ones.
Get you with back, like everything hurts, though. It sounds like even back training hurts the biceps.
It's the grip. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, it's the grip. So I can work around it. There's things that cause it less pain, And I'm going to go to Becky, my FST therapist, on Friday or Saturday. So yeah, she should be able to help me. Plus, I started using the CBD THC cream, which has a really good topical effect. So combo of all that stuff. Oh, in physical therapy, because I went to physical therapy for tennis elbow before, and I learned how to overcome that. With therapy, and I think that I'll be able to apply. This is golf elbow, but same principle. So I'm doing therapy for that on a regular basis, and I think that that'll expedite the recovery and the healing of it. But yeah, in the past, I think we all have probably. You start getting that little twinge in your elbow or something, and then you ignore it and you push through it, and guess what happens? It keeps getting worse, right?
I did that for about 30 years, and now I work around that shit as much as I can. I try not to do anything, but it's okay. I could just have to go try 3 or 4 or 5 exercises, and eventually, if I don't find one, I just don't do anything. But yeah. If you work around it though, it's amazing how just the slightest droplet of common sense and stop doing the shit that hurts. It really helps. It really, really does.
Yeah.
But bodybuilding is not about common sense most of the time. So
well, think about it, and I don't want to get too off track here, but if we think about it, it's like a lot of bodybuilding is about persevering and overcoming and pushing through great obstacles. So I think that we apply that to areas maybe we shouldn't, like tennis elbow recovery. We just think I'm going to will myself through this, and then you end up hurt,
Right, and then let's take it another step. If we're going to go there, is do you have the strength of will and the strength of mind to step outside of your obsessive compulsive nature, and find a way to overcome the obstacle that is the golfer's or tennis elbow by training more smartly, intelligently, finding topical solutions, doing all the stuff you're going to do, therapy or what have you. And to get past it. I mean, is it which requires more willpower, to step back and have some patience and resist that urge to just continue to beat the shit out of your arms?
Yeah.
Not saying you're doing this, but whatever the injury of the legs might be, or to be smart about it and find a way to get out of that hole within a week. By maybe skipping a workout, not doing exercises that bother you, applying all the things to stretch. Topicals, blah, blah, blah.
I think that we're programmed, we have a romantic notion of what it's going to be to overcome something. And what you're talking about all makes sense, but there's no Rocky montage of taking a day off and doing less volume. You know what I mean? There's a Rocky montage of really grinding now. Now we're really going to push through. That's the romantic idea of that's how we do it,
Yeah, it's funny though. The Rocky montage is one. The Rocky is the pure athlete pushing through all the physical obstacles, but the physical obstacles they're ultimately their mental obstacles. So I have a Rocky montage in my mind that that fits with when I was in. Sorry, those are love bugs. There's wasps who like to land on me out here too.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, there's these things called love bugs that fly around here, and they're destroying everyone's windshields now. Literally, they don't destroy them, but they stick, and they're hard as shit to get off. Anyone in Florida knows what they are.
Yeah,
just look up love bugs in Florida, Google it, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
But one of my Rocky montages is buckling down and working 18-hour days every day for a year straight on my PhD.
Yeah.
And I was training too. That's that's a type of perseverance. And, figuring out the fastest way, to solve solutions in the lab and those sorts of things. There are lots of people who are fucking badasses all to hell who aren't physically badasses.
Right.
They're intellectually badasses. They're cognitive badasses. They've got minds that are, who, just push past. Some physicians, are really impressive in what they have to go through medical school.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, my dad had this incredible force of will and ability to concentrate.
Yeah.
Literally, I'd come up to as a kid and I'd say, "Hey, Dad," he's reading one of his medical journals, and he had learned to focus in such a way he blocked out everything.
Yeah.
I could have been lighting the room on fire, and you wouldn't notice.
No kidding.
Literally, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I combine in my mind, my montage is making use of from a tool chest. Yeah, okay, 500 pounds on that bar, and gravity is going to get its ass whooped right now. Boom. That's the Rocky montage. I'm a badass. I'm picking up heavy shit, and moving around.
Right.
But also, it's like, you know what? I know when to step away. I also have a brain. I have an intellectual mind, and I have an emotional mind.
Yeah.
And I can choose in which way to blend those together. That's the magic of the Rocky montage that I put together.
I like that.
Oh yeah, so I think of those things too. But I hear what you're saying. Like it's a lot more fun and adrenalizing.
Right.
It's just dig in there and like go bonkers, like crank the tunes, and go to town. But yeah. But there's something to say for the other side of it too. So
totally agree. And it only took like you said, 30 years to figure that out, right?
Yeah, like I've spent like decades learning some of these things I talk about, like offhand. It's like, nah, I did that for like 18 years. It wasn't like I just spent like a few months. Like I beat my head against the wall for a long time before I finally learned the lesson. So anyway. User or listener questions.
Yes. So we are over at the forum, forum.advicesradio.com. And I think actually I can hit a button and it'll just go straight to that if I'm not mistaken. There we go. Yep. I'm showing the forum now. So our first question is, and actually guys, just to point it out to you, up here at the top you can see that we are in the forum. We're in the bodybuilding discussion section, and at the top of that section, there are threads stickied, one for each of the programs, and that includes this program, which is Muscle Minds with Dr. Scott Stevenson. First question here is from Martin. He says, can you please discuss the... wait, no, it's not from Martin. Excuse me. We are going down. Let's see. Dr. Scott and Scott McNally, plain and simple, what are your favorite compounds that promote strength and progress without too many emotional side effects? I value my relationships tremendously, and I enjoy being kind, especially being that I'm a bartender. In my observation, when utilizing compounds like Tren, I became cold and distant. Any response is appreciated. Thank you much.
So... my quick and dirty answer was I like sushi, sorbet, Amy's cheese-free pizzas.
Ooh, those are good.
Those are delicious, yeah, and various inter-workout concoctions. And those don't make me cold or distant. Those make me happy, warm, and fuzzy.
Actually, I don't think I've had the cheese-free. I've had them with
all
cheese.
Good.
Yeah.
I would eat those. Would be like I've talked about those. I had last year. Many preps I've done those. That's been like part of my post-workout regimen, and I've been just. Part of it was just to say I'm eating pizza like the week before the show, but I would have those cheese-free pizzas. I'd scrape off a lot of the toppings and stuff, so it ended up being just sort of like a kind of a flavored crust.
I like that.
But those are good. No cheese, no fat.
My friend Bill Tocco uses those. He might use them with cheese though. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that was his cheat meal. He was eating fat-free muffins and an Amy's pizza. That was that was his refeed type thing.
Yeah, those are really good. I asked this question. I always have to take a step back because he's favorite compounds for most strength and progress. He's kind of answered his own question. Like if he takes Tren and it like turns him, makes him cold and distant, then stop taking Tren.
Yeah.
What else are you doing to promote strength and progress?
Yeah.
So there's nothing. You just don't with many of these questions. So is your diet in order? Are you not missing meals? Is your training progressive, et cetera, or are you just really just looking for the magic bullet in the compound, in the drug? So in his case, he's a bartender and he needs to be affable. So, not that I'm saying you should or shouldn't do this, but a lot of people feel pretty good on D-ball.
Yeah.
That kind of makes them feel good. Anadrol doesn't have that effect, but Dianabol tends to make people kind of happier. Testosterone in and of itself does.
Yeah.
So has he tried just using testosterone? Making more affable and, and like people a little bit better than, using Tren or Anadrol or Halo or something like that. Halo will make you strong as hell, but it doesn't make you lovable and warm and fuzzy. That's for
God
sure.
no, God no.
Yeah. So
might make you fuzzy. I don't know about warm and fuzzy.
Right, but, bristly maybe, like a porcupine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's the kind of fuzzy we're talking about here. So, he's kind of asked it, but without knowing what he's done, I would first and foremost look at see what, if he's covering all his bases in terms of gaining the strength and size that he wants. Like, it sounds pedantic to say that, but the way he asked the question is like he's just looking for a drug to solve the answers. One that used to that you could probably still get if you're getting Tren, you can probably get is it was a designer steroid, which I think you can probably still get somewhere. Epistane, what was it called? There's another brand name for it.
Start with an F?
No, start with an H, I think.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Anyway, but Epistane was one that made people feel pretty good.
Huh? I didn't remember that. I remember seeing it out.
Yeah, that one gave sort of an elevated mood.
Okay.
To lots of people. So, what else, Scott? What other gear gives people? I mean, this is a guy.
Yeah.
Like women will kind of like have a kind of more of a beneficial effect on sex drive, and sometimes it'll make them angry, but sometimes gear affects them differently than guys.
Yeah. I would think, realistically, anything is going to make you stronger, right? For the most part, any kind of anabolic steroid, it's only going to improve performance, well, hopefully, if it's working well for you.
Well, now we can get into some, here's a better nitty-gritty, sciencey type of answer. So there's different mechanisms by which androgens may work, and there does seem to be, there's the classical genomic action, where an androgen would make its way, because it's lipophilic, makes its way through the plasma membrane, and then it combines to the two pieces of the androgen receptor, the two dimers, and those come together, and then they go into the nucleus, and that elicits genetic expression of proteins, all the things that androgens would do, like testosterone, compared to like estrogen. So there's androgen response elements that respond to that combination of testosterone or androgen bound to the dimerized androgen receptor. All the nifty, but there's also some GMP, cyclic GMP related, probably membrane bound androgen receptors that elicit a very immediate effect. And this is probably what people are getting when they get the effect of like Halo or Anadrol or any type of really oral androgen that has an effect on aggression.
Okay.
And those are known to affect strength too.
Yeah.
Obviously. So kind of what he's getting, and Tren is a strong androgenic component as well. So with androgenic action comes, and some of that is probably related to this really kind of poorly elucidated mechanism of androgen receptor signaling. That's an immediate one. The time frame for increasing protein synthesis and all those things that happen genomically through the androgen response elements upstream of those genes that are regulated by androgens on the long haul like that is something that can take hours and days, and that's going to give you strength vis-a-vis more muscle mass. But this acute, like when you take Anadrol and 40 minutes later you just want to go and bend the bar in half.
Yeah.
Or you take Halo and your bristly is all hell and you're ready to just chew people's heads off. Anyone who looks at you wrong, you want to stab them in the heart.
Or lift a bunch of weight, whichever happens first.
Yeah, right, exactly. Give me the weights or give me the person. I'm going to kill both, Yeah. So there's something to say for that. So if he's looking for sort of that acute amplification of strength that's probably neurological, that comes with androgens, there's going to be some trade-off there, and that they're going to tend to have that androgenic effect on personality and behavior, because it's a neurological phenomenon. Those things go hand in hand. And obviously men have different personalities than women.
Sure.
Which Victoria and I were just kind of, if we can just sort of presume for the split second that we can't actually divide the human species into those two camps.
Okay.
Obviously, there's some intersex, transgender, in between type issues, but men are different than women, and some of that is seen behaviorally.
Yeah.
Some of that's androgen mediated.
Yeah. So
the androgenic component tends to be one that impacts aggression, at least in Homo sapiens. So you're gonna miss out. You're gonna have to take, if you wanting what Tren will do in terms of strength, and it does do that for strength. People just get strong as shit.
Yeah.
Will start using it when they diet down, and they can hold on to their strength. Somebody gets stronger.
Right.
They're dieting down on Tren. Even though they're maybe even losing some muscle mass. That's just an acute neurological effect that's going on there. In this case, it's not acute because you're using an ester Tren injectable. You're going to get that aggression and that coldness and that distance, which is having this conversation too. There's some evidence. It's just cross-sectional as far as I know right now. Maybe there's some stuff in rats. I have to go look and see if I'm mixing it up in my head, but there's cross-sectional where they've imaged the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system, the emotional brain. It's part of the brain. It's sort of the fear and aggression center, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like when something is presented to us that's foreign or potentially scary or would elicit some sort of a fight or flight response, that's registered in the amygdala, and it's our prefrontal cortex, our cerebral cortex, our sort of cognitive, higher functioning, executive functioning brain that puts the damper on that. So someone walks up to you in the gym and says, "You fucking asshole," and instead of like lashing and jumping on them, strangling them, you say, "Excuse me, maybe you have me confused for someone else. Like, what's going on?"
Right.
Yeah, like you're a little more calm. So that's the prefrontal cortex. That's your these executive functions dampening that fear and or aggression, which is elicited and you see the electrical activity in the amygdala when they do various experiments where they can visualize that immediately. So it's the amygdala is involved with those sorts of immediate, like, get the fuck out of here. There's the wasp. You see it?
Yeah, I didn't see it. No.
Oh, he's flying around. And it's our higher brain that takes care of those things. Well, back to the steroids, they've at least found, and this could be, whether this is cause and effect is, hard to know, because they're not going to probably do these experiments in maybe they could actually, they could probably just do it sort of, do it as a natural experiment, but steroid users have enlarged amygdalas.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's, yeah.
I remember you talking about this in another situation.
Yeah, so whether that's, the fact that maybe they're just more, they have large amygdalas and that is concomitant with being sort of more easily afraid or aggressive, and that leads them to the behavior of using steroids, as sort of a coping and covering strategy, in some way, shape, or form, or whether the steroids have actually caused the amygdala to enlarge. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
But my guess is that if you were to compare gear that tends to cause aggression, like halo,
right?
Like, let's say you could do a study with rats and give them halo versus giving them testosterone, you would find that the halo would enlarge the amygdala more so than testosterone.
I would think.
Yeah. And you would see that behaviorally as well.
Yeah.
So something's probably going on there neurologically with some of those aggressive causing, strength causing, more androgenic types of compounds. So the fascinating thing, one other thing too, is that a lot of orals don't bind very tightly to the androgen receptor in the very limited research that's been done.
You've brought that up before too, about how like Anadrol doesn't light things up the way that it was expected to. I remember.
It's just the binding affinity when you look at it's just a very, very low relative binding. Competitive binding assays don't suggest that, but there's also another way you can look at activation of the androgen receptor downstream, but it actually is turning on those androgen receptor elements.
Yeah.
It's just not binding to the classical androgen receptor, so it's mediating that effect some other way. So it's really kind of bizarre to me, to be perfectly honest, that hasn't all been elucidated. Maybe I'm just fucking missing the literature, because this is really important for like the agriculture. You can't really use like a bunch of, I don't know how much they even use trenbolone in cattle implants anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's highly regulated, but using stuff like clenbuterol and trenbolone and that sort of was really big in the agriculture literature and in agriculture, because you can increase feed efficiency,
right?
Get more meat out of whatever food you give to it. It's about profit and money. So if more you can elucidate those mechanisms and figure out, okay, so what is it more specifically that's bringing about the growth versus not bringing about the growth? Like, let's tease about this part, and then we can see if we can engineer more drugs so we can get better feed efficiency. I'm really surprised that there isn't a lot more literature digging into that. Maybe I've just missed it, but I've dug around a lot.
Yeah, you would think it'd be out there.
So
I've got a thought just to add.
Yeah.
I feel like people overdose stuff too. I don't know what kind of dosing he used with Tren in the past, but I know that when I first got introduced to it, I learned from the message boards how people suggested to dose it. Same thing with Clen. Same thing with T3. And my initial experiences with those compounds were a lot harsher than when I revisited them down the road with the help of a coach that had a much better understanding. And that's when I felt like so I had an understanding of like what Tren is and how it works and even how it felt. Same thing with Clen, same thing with T3. But it wasn't until I actually had a coach that helped me understand how to dose it and how to because I just felt like, well, you're supposed to deal with this. If you're going to take Trem, you're going to have insomnia and you're going to feel like shit. You're going to be sweating all the time. This, and this is going to happen, but you're also going to get these results that you're looking for. And I found later, and it's like even a bigger deal to me now, that I don't have to necessarily suffer those side effects and still get some benefits. I just have to know how to dose stuff now. And so, I swore Tren off at a certain point just because it was such a negative experience. But then when I tried it again at like what some people would consider a minute dose, I was able to kind of build it up to what was still a small dose, but I got a great effect from it, and I dealt with hardly any of the side effects that I had in the past. So I know exactly what he's talking about feeling that disconnect and not, just it's not a good feeling. And I feel the same way. Like I value and I think it's a really good point. He says he values his relationships tremendously. Like I'm right there. James Brown asked what was the dose. Like I honestly started with 25 milligrams of Tren Ace every other week after I'd swore it off, and I decided to start again. Started at 25 every other day, and I worked my way to 50, and I never went past 50. And I felt like, honestly, I could tell it was there. I was getting benefits from it, but I didn't deal with any side effects, really, at that dose for me. So, at least nothing that was like before, I think the first time I ran it was 100 milligrams every other day with Prop, and it was just, like, god-awful,
Right.
It was terrible,
350 a week, yeah, that's like the bottom. Like, you lose 350 a week of anything, right?
Yeah.
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 I mean, get the most from the least.
Yeah.
And I've talked to many people who, like, almost any amount of Tren is noticeable.
Okay.
And if you think, and here's the thing, and I'll connect this because this is something that women are obviously more sensitive to androgens than men. Doses are less, hopefully.
Yeah.
And this happened. They seem to have the greatest personality changes. Men are already androgenized, so to speak. If that's even a word. They're androgenic. They're already male-like. They are men. So you're just amplifying a personality and characteristics that are already present because of their sex. God, those freaking wasps!
Don't get stung.
They haven't. So So far I haven't gotten stung. As long as I'm cool. I had one land on my leg during the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Holy Trinity. It just sat there for like, I don't know, about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. It eventually left. And so that happens a good bit. If you think about it in this context, that the average man is producing like 7 to 10 milligrams of testosterone per day.
Right.
So we're talking, that's why you would do like literally, some people will say a true HRT dose, and it varies. But if you're just talking about like testosterone enanthate with a certain percentage of 100 milligrams being the enanthate portion, that fatty acid, then you're basically putting in the body about the testosterone that it would have been producing normally in the testes,
right.
A little bit in the adrenals too. But so that's not shit. That's like, let's say it's 10 milligrams a day. So if you're doing 100 milligrams every day, that's 50 milligrams a day of tren, which is more androgenic. I mean, you're at 5 times dosage wise something that's much more androgenic than test, and there's various ways you can quantify or qualify that.
Yeah.
You're way above what the body is. It's what you consider its normal sort of set point of regulation to be. Right. Hormonally in terms of sex hormones.
You're probably using test with that too,
Yeah, like, I mean, if you're and that's the interesting thing, it is true, there's a dose response, that who knows where it peters out, but, and some of this is a function of people having real gear or not, but if you're like at 3 grams, maybe that's the max, like you don't get anything beyond 3 grams, although some people say like, they get more from 7 or 10 grams or whatever, but like that's so far, like 3 grams is 30 times normal. It's crazy. So, so there's maybe something that's going on there. Who knows? Like that's where I'd be interested to see, the extent to which those different pathways, those androgenic pathways, are being lit up, the genomic and the membrane bound, the ones that aren't really all that well elucidated, see like how this is working. And probably some of the story there is orals versus injectables, because those orals a lot of times don't bind to the androgen receptor in the way that the injectables would too. So anyway, so back to tren, or what would happen with women, for instance, who are even using like, I mean, even if you're like, let's say it's 10 milligrams of Anavar a day, 10 milligrams of testosterone a day is what a man would produce. Anavar is not the same exactly, but a lot of women would be doing that, plus, throw some Primo or some NPP in there or something like that, and you're already at, 2 to 3 times total androgen coming in compared to what a man would have.
That's a lot. So, that's so much comparatively.
It really sort of is, and I don't say this in a way to be critical, but we never had a chance. This is thoughts occurring, and I've talked with clients about this and had other conversations. But it's interesting when you frame it that way, because a lot of women are just like, oh, just do what my coach says. There's a lot of coaches that are pretty irresponsible, I think, with what they have women do sometimes. But if you think about, like, for instance, during growth and development, if you look at boys versus girls, prepubescent, their strength and body composition is about the same.
Okay,
obviously they look different. Yeah, you can see the differences. There's some things that happen in utero, et cetera, but if you look at like physical fitness scores and those sorts of things, girls and boys are the same. And then when you hit puberty, there's a tremendous divergence in terms of like pull-up scores. Like boys end up being able to do like pull-ups, and girls really can't do them. Actually, girls will end up they'll gain a little bit of muscle mass, but they gain a lot of body fat. That's what happens in puberty.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas the boys lose body fat and gain muscle mass. So that's the androgenic versus the estrogenic, or the versus gynoid differences in body composition that happen at that time. So the reason I bring that up is that boys and girls are very similar. There's obviously some genetic differences there because the Y chromosome is in place in the boys, and that's pre-programmed to a certain degree. But then when you take a woman now, who basically in lieu of the sex hormones that you have in adulthood post-pubescent, is very similar to a boy in terms of body composition and some other basic anthropometric measurements, body measurements you'd make. And then say, okay, now we're going to go to like a standard dose that might be used for a competitive physique athlete. where you're now 2 or 3 times above in terms of total weekly androgen dosage that which a male would have. Basically, the androgens coming in from those drugs, obviously they're synthetic, so they're not the same as testosterone. But you've got a situation where basically you are providing androgens in the same sort of dosages that you would expect to cause. That might be used like in a sex change transformation, a transgender transformation.
Right.
Where they would take a woman a female to male, who would then get testosterone to promote that change.
I've seen that. I remember listening to an interview on NPR, and they had a woman who was transitioning, and I think she took like 500 milligrams of test to start. And then she backed it down to like 300.
Right.
But I know women that take 250, not a problem on a regular basis. And that's about a transition dose.
Yeah. So, and obviously testosterone's different than Anavar, blah, blah, blah. But it's just, I'm just sort of painting a kind of a picture in terms of growth and development and relative androgen levels compared to total doses that tend to be used. And obviously, like Anavar's not the same as test. Nandrolone's not the same as test as far as androgenic actions, blah blah blah. But I don't know that everyone realizes kind of what the ballpark is in which they're playing hormonally. Men versus women and guys. So it's that the guys that are doing 3 grams is like, whoa, that's way beyond what endogenous levels would be, and women are like way beyond what endogenous levels would be. It's probably, I have to go and usually they say the chart is about 20 women of about 1/20th the level of testosterone that men do. So if you take a woman and now she's up to an androgen androgens coming in at the level of a man, that's about a 20-fold increase above what she normally would have, and that's not too far away from a guy going from natural to 2 grams.
That's
a week.
And that sounds huge. When you say natural to 2 grams, that sounds
that's a big
huge.
Jump. Yeah, so that's sort of that's why lots of women, like 5 milligrams of Anavar can make a world of difference.
Sure.
For a woman, that's a little bit less than the 7 to 10 you quoted for men, and Anavar is not as androgenic. So, but you can't really quantify it exactly, but you're moving towards maybe half the androgenic component that you might have in a man, and that's gigantic.
That's huge
in terms of what that can do to body composition. So that would be kind of cool to. Maybe I should come up with a figure or something like that. Just sort of like scale this, like literally over the lifetime, and then like what happens in terms of testosterone at puberty in men. Like to put it on scale, like if people can imagine, like let's say we got 2 lines here, boys and girls are pretty much even, and then you've got puberty, and then not much change in androgens in women. The estrogen goes up, and then guys go up to here. They're like 20-fold above in androgens, and then what happens when you go on 3 grams? Boom, it's up in the clouds. Right. And then women who go to just 10 milligrams of Anavar, total androgens are up there the same with guys. I mean, if you sort of relatively think about this sort of relative terms.
Oh, yeah.
So a typical female competitor's dose might put them at or above endogenous androgen levels for a man, which would be maybe 20 times above what a female endogenous level would be. And a guy on 2 to 3 grams is, relatively speaking, increasing androgen, incoming androgens to the same relative extent as a woman going on a typical dose.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'll have to see how I can. That's a pretty cool. I'll have to plot that out because that's pretty. I think that would be very informative. Maybe I'll put that on my Instagram.
That would be
I'll
interesting.
put that in the next days. Yeah, that'll be probably eye-opening. I only say this to in no way. Like people could do whatever they want, and unless just this bartender does trend and he starts stabbing his customers. That's not good.
No.
But people do whatever they want. I have absolutely no issues with that. But it's just nice. Information is power. It's nice to know.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, what's going on. So I hope that my little mathematical, physiological insights can be helpful to people. Just like holy shit, I never thought of it that way. Wow. That gives me a new perspective, and perspective is everything. Perspective is one of the key components of wisdom, I might say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, hopefully that shines some light of perspective on the...
I think so. I think we got him thinking at least in some new directions, maybe. And I think we gave him a lot. Plus, yeah, I think more important than just saying, Halo, saying T&E, that hopefully we got some thought going there. It gave me some ideas. I'm gonna move on to the next one here. Let's see, and I can actually click a button for our viewers so they can visit the board with me as I go back to it. Next question. A couple of questions for both Scotts, if time is not an issue. What do you think an insulin-only cycle for 2 months is a good idea? This will be without any TRT or HGH. Only 10 units divided pre- and post-training with Carbolin and Pepto-Pro. Will I gain keepable muscle or temporary glycogen-based weight? Thanks in advance.
So, you want to answer this one, Scott? It's to both of us.
Okay. Here's my thought.
I have an answer, but of course,
here's my thought.
I want to hear yours first.
My first thought is that I don't like the idea of a stagnant dose. That we say, let's do this for 2 months. We're just going to take 10 units. We're going to split that up pre and post. I feel like the benefits that you're going to see from that in week 1 are going to be far different from the results you see from it in 8 weeks from now. That would be my first thought. This goes back to my thought before about the trend. Instead of just looking at the message board and saying, okay, I run 100 milligrams every other day because that's what the message board says to do. That's what the bros on the board told me. They've been doing this longer than me. So then I plot it out and I just do just that and stick to it even when I can't sleep at night and all the side effects are bothering me. I would rather start, like you said, Scott, in the last question, start really low and get the most I could out of a minimal amount and then build it from there. Would I do it for 2 months? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I would, but I would definitely keep reevaluating my results as I go. And this is what I would do with a client. And then I would, and just like with anything, be it insulin or anything else, supplement or food, a nutritional idea that we're using. And I'll try to get the most out of what we're attempting to do. And when I'm not seeing the results anymore, that's when I know that we either need to add more or we need to change. Well, let me just say this. You just need, when you're not seeing the results that you wanted anymore, then a variable needs to change. And if you started out at a really low dose, then you have more variables that you can play with, because one of those variables could be increase the insulin. I'll turn it over to you, Scott, but I want to throw something out there. Now, Dave Crossland has what I consider to be a very controversial thought. He said he believes that insulin does not produce muscle. Now, Dave's coming from a position where he had used massive amounts of insulin and growth to create his 415-pound physique. And when he stopped that, obviously, a lot of that came off. He thinks that mainly he gained fat, and he said you get glycogen retention. But he said you don't gain muscle. My argument with that is if you do get glycogen retention, if you are shuttling more nutrients into the muscle, then the likelihood of that muscle repairing faster and growing is going to be higher. So the second part of that question was, will I get keepable muscle or temporary glycogen-based weight? Thanks in advance. I'll say that I think that insulin does have the potential of growing muscle, just like it has the potential of growing fat. And it's going to come down to a lot of other factors, like what your nutrition is like and how you use it. If you were to use it the way he described, 10 units, 5 pre, 5 post, and do that every day blindly for the next 2 months, then your likelihood of gaining fat would probably be higher, I'm guessing. And I would say though that yes, given the right circumstances, I believe that you could gain muscle, though you will gain a lot of glycogen too, and you will look fuller being on it, you know. So I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Scott.
Yeah, I thought you had a good answer. Like your first formal answer was awesome. I liked it. Like getting the most from the least, you know, increasing the dose.
Well, I'm learning this stuff from you.
In conjunction. Stealing my answers here.
Yes.
So one of the things I'll add on top of that is that the impact of the insulin is going to depend on your insulin sensitivity at the time that you use it, and you basically intimated that with, you know, that you'd increase it in conjunction with increases in size and gains and probably loss of insulin sensitivity. Right. You know, 3 IUs pre and post, when you haven't been using any, is going to have a greater physiological effect, pharmacological effect.
I see him. He's back.
Yeah, is he on my head?
No, he's gone now. I don't see him now.
Probably a nest, like somewhere there's a barbecue grill over there. There's probably. Ooh, yeah, there he is. He's sitting there. He's waiting. You're probably nested inside there.
Don't open it right now. I don't. Yeah, I don't want to see you get stung live on on devices.
I'll take it off there when I'll get double armed with the wasp spray. You know, the 6-shooters.
Yes.
So the 3 IUs will have a greater effect when he's leaner and starting off than a month down the road when you have to up it to 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever what might happen. So we don't know where he is in terms of pushing his limits of size. So let's say he's eating let's say he's not a big eater, but he's eating as much as he can. He's sort of reached a plateau, and then he decides to toss that in. He might get some increase in glycogen retention, increase in glycogen storage. We'll call it retention. That makes it sound like it's just like some sort of byproduct. That's what insulin does. You know, it increases glycogen storage. That's a good thing. But that will really depend on how dieted down he is, how insulin sensitive is, how much he's been eating, what his current diet is, that sort of thing. The other thought I had, just generally before I forget this, is that this is the type of thing, probably, unless he's like a really hard gainer, it probably wouldn't do a whole heck of a lot for him. If he's pushed his food pretty high, and he's got a lot of insulin already being produced, and his insulin sensitivity isn't the same as it would be if you were like a month out from a show or what have you, then 10 IUs wouldn't, even if he started that, would, like you said, you probably would have an impact for a week or two, and then it would be a drop in the bucket. It wouldn't probably do much for him. Plus, it sounds like that's the only thing he's doing, or would be doing, is insulin. So there'll be a totally legal cycle. So there's all of that. Now, as far as what Dave said, insulin, I mean, it does have a pretty pronounced effect on protein synthesis. On protein metabolism, especially inhibiting protein breakdown, potentially impacting protein synthesis when you've got amino acids in the mix.
Okay.
So, I mean, insulin's permissive for protein synthesis if you are a diabetic, type 1 diabetic, you don't have any insulin around, good luck putting muscle on. It's wasting disease. You'll become emaciated without insulin and potentially die. So, then the research shows this. If you go from 0 to just physiological levels of insulin, you get an increase in protein synthesis. So it's permissive for normal. You have to have normal insulin levels to have normal protein synthesis.
Interesting.
The other thing is that insulin, it is a quote unquote storage hormone. It increases with both protein and carbohydrate intake, not so much fat. Although adding fat to carbohydrate containing foods tends to increase the insulin index. You compare like a bagel with like a croissant. Croissants are yummier, probably, than bagels or cupcakes.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet and fatty is delicious, and that increases insulin in a lot of cases. So you can look at the tables of insulin index, and you get more. And that's probably because we're sensing in our brains sweetness, the fat, everything that makes things taste great. And that's being reflected then in the hormonal response in the pancreas.
So
Insulin release.
if it tastes good, spit it out, as Jack LaLanne said, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't like that because lots of really like natural organic foods taste great.
Yes.
If you haven't like kind of like fucking up your palate with all the processed
that is
shit.
so true, isn't it? Even like an apple, tastes so much better if you're not like used to eating Twinkies all the time.
Oh yeah, like real good like food. Like when I was in Arizona, I played around with my diet. I mentioned this before, and we would go and like pick our own at some of the farms in a place called Wilcox, which isn't too far from Tucson. You go down there, and you can pick all your own, and like the corn. Oh my god! Like buy like a bag of 20 ears of corn and sit down and eat 10 ears of corn. So delicious, sweet corn. Oh, so fucking good, man. Anyway, so where was I? Totally lost my thought.
I'm sorry
about the food.
You were saying about the index goes up.
Oh, insulin. Yeah. So insulin is released in proportion to the macronutrients, fat and carbs, and the caloric content of the food. So it goes hand in hand with food. So it is anabolic. If you don't have insulin around, the food's not anabolic. You need insulin is necessary to essentially for food to have the anabolic properties that it does. Yeah. In large part, if you don't have insulin, you're not going to get very good glycogen storage from the carbs you eat. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the thing that maybe that Dave experienced, like with himself, and I know Dave knew how to fucking eat.
Yeah.
So like with all the food Dave was taking in and all the eating he was doing, it may have been that he was getting like 90% of what he's going to get from insulin, just because of all the insulin that was around continuously for all the food he was eating. So you're like you can add it's like what happens if you go from 4 grams a week to 8 grams a week? Well, nothing. But that doesn't tell you that anabolics aren't anabolic. That doesn't tell you that steroids don't work.
Yeah.
So that doesn't tell you if you're eating like he was eating like 10,000 calories a day or 12,000 or some crazy amount. It's got tons of insulin, just a massive amount of insulin floating around in the system. So when you add 100 IUs of insulin on top of what is basically a maximally stimulating dose of insulin coming from the pancreas vis-a-vis all the food he's eating, that doesn't mean that insulin's not anabolic. It just means he's already maxed out the anabolic capacity of insulin, given how much food that he's taking in. Yeah. At least that's the way I would think about it. But if you take someone, and I just did a consult with someone not too long ago who was asking about insulin, and he had experimented, this before we talked about it, experimented with insulin either before or after a show, like in the weeks after it, when he was doing like midweek carb ups or something like that. I can't remember all the details, but he was super duper lean. And he was just using 10 IUs, actually, I believe, like total. And he said it was amazing what, like, literally, I think he was literally gaining muscle in those 4 weeks. And it's the guy who's been competing for a long time, and he never used insulin before. And he was like, what the hell's going on? This is great. And some of it was glycogen, some was filling up. Yeah. But he got the sense he was putting on substantial muscle mass. So in his case, low caloric intake, low insulin output, high insulin sensitivity, 10 IUs of insulin is a substantial increment in terms of insulin's actions on the body in that scenario. Whereas, for Dave Crossland eating 12,000 or anyone eating like 8,000, 10,000 calories a day, 10 IUs of insulin is nothing. So it's, pissing in the wind. Whereas someone in that insulin sensitized, low food scenario, it's going to have a greater effect. And there's also, what's going on in terms of the macros and how you're using the insulin. Like there's a difference between people that use Lantus, like all the time, that kind of thing. I think that's a recipe for getting fat in most cases, versus someone who's doing like a peri-workout type of insulin, like it timed it with the training stimulus.
Which it sounds like that's what he's trying to do here, is probably the faster acting if he's doing it pre and post. I'm guessing, at least,
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of doing it backwards, like you said, just using the 10 IUs like as a basis, as opposed to matching the insulin with the food to some degree. Yeah. So he's probably taking enough carbs around that time that he could handle 10 IUs. But if 3 IUs will give him a great effect, and keep his insulin sensitivity so he can continue to use it and continue to get a great effect, then keep doing that. Don't blow your insulin sensitivity, by using 10 IUs and then going right to 15 the next workout and 20. I've seen people do that. It's like, you get in a great pump for about 3 or 4 weeks, and all of a sudden you're just holding water and the insulin doesn't work anymore.
People think, I think the idea is like, I'm going to work up to 20 because 20 will obviously produce better results than 10. That's right. The thought. Yeah. More.
And a lot of people find out, I don't know how Dave was doing it, but Dave was just like, to get that kind of size, he was just eating like everything.
Man, he told me he was eating through the day. I can't remember what he did for meal 1, but then he would eat 8 ounces of lean meat with 2 cups of rice every hour.
Yeah.
Every hour.
So, right. I know. So he's almost continuous eating. Like his belly was always like, there's just very little change in probably the food content of his stomach because he's just constantly eating,
Yeah. And like 30 units of human grade growth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's
yeah, so that's a different scenario than someone who's like really, really lean, and let's say that they couple their insulin with just enough carbohydrates to safely cover their glycemic control needs, and they're taking in massive amounts of protein, as much as like literally very high protein, to make use of insulin's effect on protein balance.
Yeah,
and they're in a caloric deficit. So let's say you're someone who caloric excess. So they've got enough. They're taking in 500 grams of protein a day, and they're using insulin in reasonable amounts, and they've got enough calories coming in to grow, and their carbs are like basically just enough to cover the insulin. That's a whole different situation than someone who's eating continuously all day long, rice and chicken and everything else.
Right.
And their insulin sensitivity is probably shot, and they've maximized the effect of insulin. Very, very different scenarios there.
Yeah.
So, and not that Dave hasn't, obviously he's worked with a lot of people, I know this, so he's probably tried it every which way to Sunday. So, the thing is, and I don't know, it'd be interesting. Once you've got that skeletal muscle in place, let's say, 2 months, there's the other thing with this guy is that if he does this just for like 2 months, you can only gain muscle at so fast a rate. Let's say he gains, if you're gaining a pound, let's say you gain 12 pounds of muscle in a year, that's phenomenal. That's a great rate of muscle growth. So he gains 2 pounds of muscle in 2 months, and then he's done. Yeah. Say he just kicks ass. Well, then, is he going to even notice that? No. Maybe he gets 3 pounds because he has some glycogen storage that comes along with it, which would happen. Yeah. So, and then he loses half of a pound of the muscle. He's up 1.5 pounds of muscle. He might not have noticed that at all.
Yeah.
He might have gotten 1 pound of that just from eating and everything else. So the insulin added 0.5 pound of muscle, all told, when he drops the glycogen in the water and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But he only did it for 2 months, so you can't tell. It's just too short. That's the issue with many, many training studies is they do, if you're especially looking at advanced people, is the studies are just too short to be able to pick up on any differential effect of a different training style or different nutrient intervention or supplement that they gave one group versus the other or what have you. You just can't see the effect. You don't have a large enough effect size over just 2 months. So now take this guy, let's say he's a hard gainer, and he's a really good insulin strategy, and he starts using insulin. He does it for a year.
Right.
You might see a difference there. And once you have the skeletal muscle, there are those mechanisms of muscle memory to keep that intact, epigenetic, the satellite cells, and what have you. So
he can hold on to it, is what you're saying. That this is not just going to be just glycogen. He could possibly retain some real or build some real muscle and then hold on to it after he comes off.
Yeah, if the argument, and I'm not trying to argue with Dave because he's not here. I'm trying to make straw man with Dave, but so if someone was saying insulin doesn't work because whatever muscle you gain is muscle that when on insulin is muscle that you lose when you come off insulin.
Yeah,
that doesn't fit with what we know about retention of muscle mass and these mechanisms of muscle memory, quote unquote. It doesn't, as far as I know, muscle gain through insulin or through more protein or more carbohydrate or androgens or clenbuterol or, whatever other anabolic type of strategy or phenomenon is going to be muscle.
Yeah.
It's not like if you looked at, you'd see like a different satellite cell density.
I see him.
Where'd he go? Yeah, he's all over. Different satellite cell distribution or density or configuration in insulin gained muscle versus steroid gained muscle. Now, actually, there probably would be some different epigenetic things going on, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Because steroids.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens epigenetically, we've talked about epigenetics basically. It's there's some environmental stress, and this can happen even with the sex cells, with the gametes, such that environmental stresses that a mother is exposed to in utero will be carried on to her offspring. Yeah, so that's like one of the best studied examples of epigenetic phenomena. But they found it also in like cancer. People with cancer look at twins and look at different levels of methylation of histone proteins that surround and kind of determine, as an example, that determine the extent to which genes are turned on or off. And if you look at twins, one of whom, like identical twins, one of whom has cancer and the other does not, you see epigenetic changes. And those probably relate, almost certainly have to relate to some environmental exposure that created some sort of a stimulus that changed those epigenetic phenomena. So epi meaning above phenomena that determine whether the genes get turned on or off. So it's possible. I mean, I'm just kind of covering all bases here as they come into my head.
Right.
That androgens obviously, and I would need to keep looking at this because I think that this is one of the things actually when it comes to gear and both men and women is that the chronic exposure to supraphysiological, meaning above normal for a woman or above normal for a man, relatively speaking, or respectively, probably turns on some epigenetic phenomena, which make certain genes more likely to be turned on, more or less likely to be turned on over time. So, and some of those things could cause, lack of sensitivity down the road to further androgen use, or they could just basically make it such that androgen-sensitive genes are just on more easily. They just stay on. What I've been looking for specifically is like a lot of what are considered side effects that are permanent in women. Like, why is it that like when you have like hair growth, hirsutism, that happens in women, and maybe Victoria has an answer to this if she looked into it, but some of those side effects are permanent. They stay. Those genes were there. It wasn't like the androgens it wasn't like new genes were inserted in the genome. Those genes for that hair growth, facial hair growth, let's say in a woman, that doesn't occur until the androgen exposure. It stays on. Those genes continue even though the androgens are gone.
We've talked about that just recently. The other day we were just talking about it. It's like a light switch, and that once it's on, it's on. And she was talking about how like
light switch,
she was talking about how like if PCOS type symptoms could occur, or we'll say like androgen type side effects could occur in a female. That just like it's just that they were the unlucky one, that was their genetics, and that once you flip that switch for like facial hair growth, then it's just going to continue. That we all have it. Just like for men with baldness, some of us have that gene. Sometimes it's not turned on for a long time, and then it is, and once it is, it's it,
Yeah. And some women when they go through menopause will experience baldness too. Yeah, there's a relative shift in the androgen to estrogen ratios.
Yeah.
That probably is what explains that. So anyway, back to the insulin, not being something that keeps gains creates gains you can hold on. I guess there's some possibility that whatever epigenetic quote unquote light switch related changes in those muscle memory phenomena are specific to insulin versus muscle growth that was had without supraphysiological insulin.
That makes sense.
Who knows? I wouldn't expect that. It would be but with androgens, we definitely know that there's some light switches that come on that kind of stay on. And that's probably a mechanism of such that once you've gone from natty to enhanced, you can never go back to natty. You can be clean, not natty.
Yeah.
Because some of those switches are still on.
They're
still dirty.
We had a guy who is doing research in the UK. He was on with Dave Crossland and I a couple weeks ago. We're going to put that episode out this week, actually. He is doing research on guys who have used steroids and then come off of them. They're measuring their muscle mass, and then they're seeing like what they actually hold on to, and if there is some type of a long-term genetic change to the muscle that lasts possibly permanently to guys that completely come off of gear. So interesting stuff. I'll be curious to see. And of course, they're early in their trials with this stuff, so it's going to be a while before we actually get their results.
That's like, there's just too many unknowns to really get a solid answer as far as that goes.
Yeah. I think the more people that they have in their study, the more that they could at least create a picture, you know. But I mean, even though it's like there are so many different situations of different compounds people have used, what their recovery is like, you know, it's all. You know, it's also individual, but I think there's got to be something that comes out of it that you could at least speculate from, right?
I can think of like a half a dozen uncontrolled variables which would totally like foggy up the picture.
Yeah, I can too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just the guys who use gear are willing to do other things other guys would do. They gain so much more muscle mass in the first place. You know, you'd expect the more muscle mass you've gained regardless of how you got it, the more muscle mass you'd retain.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with gear or not. Like, you take one guy who pushes it and just goes for broke and gains, 30 pounds of muscle naturally.
Yeah.
And the other guy, just doesn't, like, you would expect the guy who gained 30 to have retain more.
Yeah.
Gear or not.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, one of the things I had asked him about was, or mentioned to him at least, is I've known people that they go on cycle and they will bust their ass, but then good luck getting them in the gym once they've come off, and how is that guy going to respond, post cycle compared to a guy that stays in and keeps giving his muscle a reason to stay there.
I like to see, the way, like, you could say, recall how much muscle or how much weight did you gain, and then use that as a covariate. So, you basically sort of simplify that notion is that you compare guys who gain 30 pounds with gear versus guys who gain 30 pounds without gear, and see how much the guys who gain 30 pounds with gear retain versus the other guys. Okay. Assuming their hormones, their testosterone's gone back to about the same level. Yeah. So the covariate would be current gonadal status. Are they hypogonadal? Are they eugonadal? How much weight they actually gained, of course, whether they're training or not training, how much gear they used, what gear they used, what other things they used. But the really cool thing would be to take those guys and do an epigenetic screening and see what genes were turned on or off, and compare those from the gear users versus the non-gear users, and then look at the satellite cell density. Yeah. Because you expect, at least they've gone out like a couple years now in the animal research that I know of, and the satellite cells are retained for a couple years. So that would be interesting to see if that phenomenon, seems to persist. It'd be cool to see, like, if you've got guys that were, well, let's say, of course, how long they're on gear is another covariate. Was it for one cycle or was it for a 120-year cycle, right? Right. But interested to see, if you have, let's say, an average of 10 years on, and then you've got guys who are 2 years, 4 years, 8, 10, 12, 20 years off. You see if you progressively see a loss of those satellite cells at some point in time after the gear use. That'd be cool.
It'd be interesting.
Do they stick around for 20 years, or do they hold on for the couple 3 years and then 5 years? Because one of the natural organizations, ANFB or something like that. Okay. I know they have a really obnoxious website. You go to it and it has like this chanting on it, like this tribal chanting thing.
Oh,
it's like,
God.
we are, bah, 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 bah. It's really loud.
Yeah.
but they're really hardcore, and I think that 7 years is their time frame. You have to have been clean for 7 years.
Wow.
And they do, yeah. So that's their standard.
Huh.
I don't know where they got that 7 years from, but
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see if like that, if anything like that pans out. If over the course of 7 years, have you lost? Are some of those epigenetic changes been reversed for some reason, or have they lost the satellite cells you might have gained previously? So
Yeah.
that would be cool. The biopsy with those two things.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
We're like an hour and 45 minutes in, Scott. I don't think we have time for a third question today. You got stuff you got to do, right?
Yeah, I got some things.
All right.
I gotta maybe have to get in the pool here and take a nap. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I got some stuff to do today.
Nice. And I wish Lainey the best of luck this upcoming weekend. I'll be looking at her Instagram, looking at your Instagram, and looking for some pictures. Hear how things going. And most important, I hope that she has a lot of fun at the show.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We're gonna have a good time. And the thought occurred to me. The cocky thought was like, her competitors are the ones who are going to need the luck because she's coming to win this shit. she really does look good, So hopefully it won't be a luck thing. Hopefully it'll be a just rewarding of placing.
Yes,
but I think it will be. I think she's going to look. She's sort of almost the way I'm seeing it. She's just kind of undeniable. She like really looks that good. It's like it'll be like, well, shit. We've just seen some shows not too long ago, like just this weekend, where it's like I can't believe that the placements are what they were.
Okay.
Think of the New York Pro. I just can't believe that Correa didn't win.
Yeah.
Did you watch that or see the pictures?
No, I saw a few of the pictures, but I didn't. No, I didn't. I looked at the men's bodybuilding mostly.
Yeah, the 212. Like Eduardo was just like so crisp and just pretty. His separation was really great, and they gave it to Ascanani.
Oh, okay.
Who was big, but he just didn't have his lines were not as nearly as clean as I've seen them before.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my God, like everywhere I read, everyone was of the universal opinion that Correa got robbed. It was just kind of a shame. So, shit does happen, but she's going to be, in a way I've always thought that is a victory to be kind of the people's champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that. I don't think Lainey will. That's a consolation prize that I have that I like. It's like when people say, "Man, I can't believe that you didn't win" or what have you. It's like, that always feels nice when people recognize how you looked and the hard work and blah blah blah. But I think she's going to do really really well. Definitely going to do well as far as the feedback from people who see her.
Yeah,
and hopefully the judging will reflect that as well. So.
Awesome. Well, I wish her a bunch of luck, and I hope that you have a great time too. I hope you have safe travels out there as well.
Yeah, it should be simple. I got to go through Houston, and then it's like a 2 or 3 hour flight. It's easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And everybody at home, you can check it out. Be your own bodybuilding coach. It's Dr. Scott's book. You can pick that up at Amazon or Barnes & Noble International, as well as go to byobbcoach.com, and you can get the ebook there. Also, check out TrueNutrition.com, guys. I thank you for listening to another episode of Muscle Minds. Thank you guys who are watching the live feed, too. We're having a lot of fun doing this, so we appreciate you guys following along.
I think they have a special. Did you get this email, Scott, in True Nutrition? They're giving away all sorts of free stuff. You buy $100 and you get like a shaker. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if it's
interesting.
Yeah, maybe I don't want to if it is expired, but I saw it. And it was like thinking, what the hell I got to buy? I just bought something, so I don't need it. But yeah, they had a. See if I can load this up because this will be worth it. This will save some people. If you bought, you get free protein over $150, something like that.
Okay.
And it was like literally, I think if you went above $200, which I typically do,
yeah,
you could get like over $90 of free stuff, something like that. Yeah, they're giving away protein and shaker bottle. Let's see here.
I don't see it on their website.
Yeah.
James Brown asks, are they available in the UK yet? I don't think they are. Yeah, I don't see it mentioned on the website. But if I do see anything, I will. I'll post it up over at the Advices site.
I'm pulling it up right now here. It's a 3-day giveaway, and I got the email yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And I've got the kaleidoscopic spinning wheel, which is making me wait.
Yes.
Hold on here. I'll pull it up this way.
You know what? I think it probably came to my my promotions inbox, which I never look at.
Oh, let me see here.
Yep, I see it. 3-day giveaway. This was sent yesterday. Man. There it is. Free protein powder, 3-day giveaway. And actually, I can show the listeners, everybody who's at home right now.
I don't think they'll mind us spreading this one out, right?
Yeah, no.
Even though it wasn't on the site, but man, it was a good deal.
Free protein, hats, beanies, mugs, towels, and more. So if you spend $100, you get 1 free pound of protein flavored any way you want. Plus, you get a True Nutrition beanie or a trucker hat, plus a what is this? A True Lemon any flavor box. Use code
stevia based Crystal Light type of flavoring mix. Works great with like EAAs.
Oh, nice. So you guys have to, if you do this, don't use the Advices code, which I appreciate you guys using the code. Definitely. It lets them know that you support what we are doing. But, regardless, it looks like you can get something free here. If you are interested, you can get the hat and the beanie. If you spend more, you can get more. But you use the code. Let's see, it's free 100 if you spend over 100, free 150 if you spend over 150, and free 200 if you spend over $200.
So spend $200 and get 3 pounds of protein plus a mug plus a beanie or a trucker hat. Who doesn't want a trucker hat, right?
I want a mug.
Plus, do you want a mug?
I'm going to set up I'm working on like a Dave Letterman studio here. So the game plan is that I'll be sitting here like this at a desk, and I'll have my True Nutrition mug. Hey,
I like that. I want to see you with your trucker hat on, and like the towel tucked into your shirt, like a napkin.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Just like around my neck, like I just got done training.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Can you guys guess who my favorite nutrition store online is?
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, it's like that's a crazy good deal. Like I feel like I need to order like 3 like. That can mean over $90 in free protein and swag.
There you go.
So anyway, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing it out, Scott.
Of course.
Let's get out of here for another episode of Muscle Minds with Dr. Scott Stevenson. I'm Scott McNally, guys. We will see you soon.
Enjoy the day. Adios.